I get it when you're scrolling through a sea of projectors and you finally land on something that promises a massive, crystal clear picture. The excitement is real, but so is the doubt. You're probably thinking, will this actually work in my cramped living room? Will the input lag ruin my gaming sessions? And if I spend the cash, will I end up with a screen that looks great only when the lights are off? Those are the exact questions I asked myself before I even pulled the box off the shelf, and they're why I'm breaking this down for you today. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the BenQ TH671ST isn't marketed as a premium home theater beast. It's positioned squarely as a short-throw, gaming-focused projector that can sit on a shelf or a small table and still fill a wall with a 100-inch image. That's a pretty specific niche, and it matters because the whole value proposition hinges on a few practical realities: the size of the room, the amount of ambient light you can control, and how sensitive you are to input lag when you're trying to hit those reflex-based FPS kills. If you live in an apartment or a house where you can't mount a massive screen on a dedicated wall, the short throw factor is a genuine game changer. The TH671ST's 0.69 to 0.83 throw ratio means you can sit about 3 feet away from the screen and still project a 100-inch image. In my own setup, I placed the projector on a low TV stand, angled it just enough to avoid keystone distortion, and instantly got a wall-sized picture without needing a ceiling mount or a long cable run. For anyone who's tried to set up a traditional projector in a small room, you'll remember the endless dance of moving the unit back and forth to get the right size, only to end up with a tiny image or a massive one that spills over the ceiling. The TH671ST skips that choreography. Brightness is the next practical hurdle. At 3000 ANSI lumens, this projector is bright enough to handle a moderately lit living room without demanding blackout curtains. In my tests, I kept the kitchen lights on at about 150 lux and still got a vivid image with decent contrast. If you're planning to watch movies on a rainy night with the curtains drawn, you'll notice the picture looks even richer, but you won't be forced into total darkness to enjoy a game of Fortnite or a sports match. That brightness level also means you can use the included HDMI ports for a console, a laptop, or even a streaming stick without worrying about the image washing out. Now, the thing that separates a nice-to-have projector from a must-have for gamers is input lag. BenQ advertises a 16.7 milliseconds lag, and that's not just a marketing number, it translates into a feel that's noticeably smoother than many entry-level models. I paired the TH671ST with a PlayStation 5 and ran Call of Duty: Modern Warfare. The responsiveness was on par with a mid-range 1080p TV, which is impressive for a projector. If you're a competitive gamer who lives for split-second reactions, you'll appreciate that low latency, especially when you're playing fast-paced shooters or rhythm games. Connectivity is straightforward but worth a mention because you won't have to hunt for adapters. 2 HDMI inputs let you hook up a console and a streaming device simultaneously, while the VGA port is a lifesaver for older laptops or PC setups. The USB and audio ports give you the flexibility to connect a soundbar or external speakers without needing a separate receiver. In practice, I could switch from a game to a Netflix binge by simply swapping the HDMI source on the remote, which feels seamless. Let's talk about the practical downsides. The first thing I noticed is the fan noise. BenQ's built-in cooling fan is audible at around 30 dB in a quiet room, which isn't a problem when the sound from a game or movie is already loud, but it can become a distraction during a quiet dialogue scene or when you're trying to listen for subtle in-game audio cues. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to be aware of if you expect a whisper-quiet environment. Secondly, the lens shift is limited. The TH671ST offers a modest vertical lens shift, but there's no horizontal shift, so you have to be fairly precise with placement if you want the image centered on the wall. In a room where you can't move the projector a few inches left or right without hitting a shelf or a doorway, you may need a small piece of furniture to fine-tune the position. That's a minor inconvenience compared with the overall short-throw benefit, but it's a hidden trade-off that first-time buyers often overlook. Another practical consideration is the lack of 4K resolution. At 1080p, the picture is sharp enough for most gaming and streaming content, especially when the image size is under 120 inches. However, if you're a cinephile who wants the absolute highest detail for 4K Blu-rays or future-proof streaming services, you'll need